Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this press conference on the topic of the growing problems related to the consumption of the Pacific bluefin tuna. Ahead of the 10th regular session of Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission's Northern Committee that will be held in Fukuoka from September 1st to September 4th, the FCCJ welcomes 3 speakers today who will brief us on the deteriorating state of the Pacific bluefin tuna, how its consumption is important in Japanese cuisine, the lack of communication between the scientists and the fishery industries, the point of view from the marine scientists, and of course the action taken by key countries to solve the bluefin tuna crisis, and the positive opportunity Japan has this year to make a difference at the Northern Committee's regular session. Also, international NGOs, WWF, Pew Charitable Trust, and Greenpeace are calling on this committee to urgently strengthen the management of Pacific bluefin tuna based on the best available scientific evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Mrs. Amanda Nickson, the Director of Global Tuna Conservation of the Pew Charitable Trust. Amanda joined Pew in 2010, leading on advocacy efforts with regional fisheries management organizations to address the conservation and management of sharks, tuna, and other valuable marine species. Now at the helm of Pew's international work on tuna, Nickson and her team are targeting efforts towards securing precautionary management of the largest tunas and the world's tunas fishery. The campaign aims to secure effective management of both Atlantic and Pacific bluefin tunas, as well as work on the Pacific towards development of effective catch limits and gear regulations for fishing big eye and skipjack tunas. Before joining Pew, Nickson worked for WWF for nearly 12 years, including leading international efforts to protect threatened charismatic species, including tigers, pandas, and marine turtles. Nickson also developed and led WWF's Bycatch initiative, a major policy and field program aimed to reducing the incidental catch of non-target species in fisheries in more than 20 countries throughout the world. Let me introduce you Mrs. Aiko Yamauchi. She is the WWF Japan Fishery and Seafood Project Leader, also a WWF Smart Fishing Initiative Enabling Team member. In 2002, she graduated Tokyo University of Marine Science and Technology in the Department of Resource Management. In 2007, she received doctorate in marine science from the Tokyo University of Marine Science and Technology. In 2008, she began working as a Marine Program Fishery Officer at WWF Japan. She is now involved in lobbying and campaign activities on sustainable fisheries and sustainable seafood. And finally, let me introduce you Greenpeace Japan Senior Ocean Campaigner, Mr. Wakao Hanaoka, who leads Greenpeace's Sustainable Seafood Project in Japan, particularly retailer leadership in establishing sustainable seafood procurement policy and raising the consumers' awareness. He also led Greenpeace's Marine and Seafood Radiation Contamination Research Project and retailer leadership in establishing safety procurement standards since the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Wakao has authored 3 ranking reports evaluating growth in seafood safety and sustainability associated with radiation, contamination, and overfishing, and how different Japanese retailers are performing. He has also been a lecturer, panelist for multiple seafood seminars and symposiums in Japan, as well as a Greenpeace delegation member for international meetings such as Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commissions, WCPFC, and International Whaling Commission, IWC, and Conference of the Parties of the Convention of Biodiversity. Wakao has been working for Greenpeace for 7 years now, and his background is marine biology and marine environmental studies. So we are going to start this press conference. Please let me remind you to switch off your mobile phone. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Today I'll start our presentation with a short summary video and then move on to some quick background on the basic biology of Pacific bluefin. Then my colleague will provide an overview of the current state of the fishery, both in Japanese waters and in international waters and involving other countries, along with recent and historic catch of bluefin in the Western Pacific. We will then look at some recommendations towards the governments involved in management of this species, after which we'll hand over to my colleague Wakao to actually discuss some of the markets work. If we could move now to the video. Okay, so as you saw in the video, many Pacific bluefin make quite a migration, traveling from their place of birth in the Western Pacific, which you can see over here, all the way over to the Mexican coast to feed, and then returning back to the Western Pacific to reproduce. It's quite a substantial migration. You can also see on the charts immediately above that Pacific bluefin mature relatively early compared to other bluefin species. By age 3, about 20% are, whoops, this is getting in the way, about 20% are mature. At age 4, approximately 50% are mature. At age 5, we believe about 100% are mature. Currently, the only known spawning grounds for these species are in the waters around Japan. And if you look here, I'll draw your attention to this sort of orange-colored areas, which are believed to be the only spawning grounds for this species. As you also saw in the video, Pacific bluefin is severely depleted. At this stage, scientists who assess this population believe that it is at just 4% of historic levels. This chart was produced by the ISC, the group of independent scientists that undertake stock assessments for this species, and you can see that the biomass at this point, at which the study assessed is at almost the lowest point it has been since 1953, with the exception of this one slightly lower point in 1983. So it is really at a historic turning point. So the question then becomes, how did we end up in this situation? What happened? The bottom line is really that there has just been too much fishing, both of adult fish and of juveniles. As you can see in the chart here, fishing has varied widely between 10,000 and 40,000 metric tons over the last number of years. You can also see, if you look at the number of fish caught by age, that about 97 to 98% of the recent catch of this species is made up of juvenile fish, which means most of this catch is occurring before this species has a chance to reproduce. This obviously has a tremendous and negative impact on the ability of this population to maintain itself and to provide a viable fishery. However, it's important to understand that what has happened recently is only part of the story. If you actually look at things historically, Pacific bluefin tuna has been caught for many, many years, and in fact for hundreds of years by Japanese fishermen. An analysis that looked at the catch of bluefin even prior to 1950 actually indicated that catches were as high as 35 to 40 metric tons, as you can see just in here, meaning that the population may actually have been overfished or subject to overfishing even before 1950. So this has been a problem that has been some time in the making. I'd like to hand over now to Ms. Aiko Yamauchi from WWF to talk about fisheries management for this species.
Thank you, Amanda. For me, I would like to introduce the schemes of the fishery management for this very significant tuna species. This slide shows that the 5 RFMOs, which is the Regional Fisheries Management Organization, where they stand, and their regions. For the Pacific bluefin tuna, the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission, which we call the WCPFC, and the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Commission, which we call IATTC, are managing Pacific bluefin tuna in the Western Pacific and the Eastern Pacific, respectively. The ISC and IATTC Scientific Advisory Committee are researching and integrating scientific data and providing them to the WCPFC and IATTC. It is pointed out by the scientists that to recover that stock, that both IATTC and the WCPFC need to implement fair and equivalent management measures through the Pacific Ocean. This slide shows that the historical management measure for the Pacific bluefin tuna and the current management measure for the Pacific bluefin tuna. Until 2011, there were no management measure for the Pacific bluefin tuna all over the world. And in 2011 was the first time that the conservation measure was implemented for the Pacific bluefin tuna in the Western Central Pacific. From the 2011 to 2013, the conservation and the management measures said that the fishing mortality is maintained at level lower than the 2002 to 2004 level, and the amount of catches of immature, which is juvenile fish, nearly hatched to 3 years old, is reduced from the 2002 to 2004 level. However, that South Korea made the reservation for these measures, so there were the exemptions in the WCPFC. And in 2014, this year, now the current conservation and management measure that are mandatory is that a fishing mortality is reduced less than the 2002 to 2004 level, and the amount of catches of juvenile fish is reduced at least by 15% from the average catches from 2002 to 2004 level. Next, please. And now this table shows that the stock management scenarios which analysis conducted by the ISC and in April, which was published. For instance, for the scenario 1 shows that if that we keep the fishing effort on the 2002 to 2004 average, and to, the juvenile catches to reduce to the 50% from 2002 to 2004 average, and in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, which is the IATTC jurisdiction, to keep the catches to the 5,500 metric tons a year, which is representing the current management measure. And the 2 to 6 is some kind of additional additional conditions have added, and this simulation has been conducted. Which was significant was that the ISC pointed out that only the scenario 6, which says that the fishing effort to be less than the 2002 to 2004 average, and the 50% reduction for the juvenile catches, 50% reduction from 2002 to 2004 average, and the catches in the Eastern Pacific Ocean to 2,715 metric tons a year could help that the Pacific bluefin tuna stock to recover. Based on this ISC stock management scenario, we'll come up with the recommendations to the RFMOs. And I would like to hand over to Amanda again to show our recommendations.
Thank you. Based on all of that information and recalling that the only scenario that actually indicated any chance of an improvement in the state of Pacific bluefin was that scenario 6, Pew, Greenpeace, and WWF have several joint recommendations for the management of Pacific bluefin. First is that the members of the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission, WCPFC, and the Inter-American Tropical Tuna Commission, or IATTC, must implement catch reductions this year in line with that Scenario 6 advice. That means, and you can see this written on the slide here, a 50% reduction in juvenile catches in the Western and Central Pacific from the 2002 to 2004 average, and a reduction in the adult catch in the Western Pacific to the average of what was seen between 2002 and 2004, as well as a catch limit in the East of no more than 2,750 metric tons, which again represents a 50% cut. In addition, it is our recommendation and our firm belief that both RFMOs must agree on a rebuilding plan that will return the adult population to at least 20% of its original size within a reasonable time frame in a timely manner, as defined by best practice, and that this plan should have at least an 80% chance of success. Further, it is our view that given the highly depleted state of the population at this time, if these minimum measures are not agreed to this year, then all fishing for Pacific bluefin should be suspended until such a time as that we do see agreed management measures implemented, and until such a time as we see some conclusive growth and recovery in this population. With the situation such as it is now, with 4% of the sort of historic population size, this is not a time where we can see half measures in place. We need to see a situation where both of these international bodies and all of the countries involved come together, follow the scientific advice, and take very clear action along the lines of that advice if we are to see a future for this species. I would like to hand over now to Wakao to talk about market actions and work. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. We also have a recommendation for the market, and this is especially important in Japan, as Japan is not only the biggest fishing nation in terms of the species, but also the largest consumption nation. About 80 to 90% of the bluefin tuna caught has been consumed in Japan market. And because of this high demand, this has been the trigger of the overfishing. We have been communicated with market players, and we see some of the positive work, but overall we feel that there's a big lack of proactive move from the market. So we have this recommendation to all the market players. First one is to establish transparent traceability on the species from both two places. So which means retailers should know who catch, how, when this is catch, and how it has been catched. Also, it has to be traced all the way through the supply chain. The second recommendation is to avoid sourcing Pacific bluefin tuna product, which impede recovery of the stock. So, for example, juveniles and also like spawning groups, those kind of Pacific bluefin tuna, retailers should stop procuring. And the third one is to encourage suppliers to support science-based and precautionary recovery plan of Pacific bluefin tuna. I'd like to introduce you the supermarket survey that Greenpeace has been conducted. Because we choose supermarket because about 70% of the house consumed seafood has go through supermarket in Japan. We conduct this survey to the 15 largest supermarket in Japan, and the research time frame is from August 1st until August 26th. Pacific bluefin tuna used to be very special, valuable food. We used to eat only as like celebration or like special day, but the way of consumption has been polarized. Now we see Pacific bluefin tuna everywhere, including like supermarkets and like train sushi restaurant, etc. And so that is the background of the survey, and I introduce the conclusion first that because of this supermarket demand, the business of the supermarket is pretty much doing like small profit, quick return business, which means they procure and sell in big quantity. And this is the things that trigger the overfishing, especially the juveniles and spawning groups, which compared to the matured large size of the fish, it's easier and cheaper to catch, to procure for supermarket. And also, supermarket can sell this as the honmaguro, which direct translation is true tuna, and Wakao and Japan code. Those are the brand that they can promote this product to the consumers. And this is the result of our survey research. The map on the right top, those are the supermarket, 15 largest supermarket in Japan that we targeted. And we send the questionnaires to all those supermarkets and receive the answers from 13 of them. And from the top, our question is if they procure, if they sell, if they deal juvenile fish, bluefin tuna, if they procure farmed bluefin tuna, because farmed one juvenile is catched from the wild ocean and make it bigger in the farm and to be distributed. Also, we ask that if those supermarkets deal with spawning groups, and also Pacific bluefin tuna caught by Korean vessels, and also the species imported by Mexico. The red line shows that the number of the supermarket who deal with those bluefin tuna. So at the top, juvenile. Out of 13 supermarkets, all 13 supermarkets are dealing juvenile Pacific bluefin tuna. Out of these 13, 4, the yellow bar, 4 supermarkets are saying that they concern about the situation, so they are reducing the amount of procuring. the second one, how to read this graph is the same. Out of 13 supermarkets, all 13 supermarkets are dealing farmed Pacific bluefin tuna, and only 2 consider about the situation. About the spawning group, out of 13, 9 are dealing those fish, and 4 are saying that because of the situation, they stop dealing the spawning fish. Korean 1, 3, they are still dealing, and 10 out of the 13 are not dealing. Mexico is opposite from the Korean 1. 10 supermarkets are dealing Mexican Pacific bluefin tuna, and 3 are not dealing. In addition to the political work, like in national political work and like fishery regulation, and also the global like WCPFC, IATTC frame of work, what is important is a market initiative, again, especially in Japan as the biggest consuming nation. Greenpeace has been communicated widely to those 15 supermarkets to take more proactive initiative. And we see some supermarkets are saying, showing small progress, such as Daiei, which is under Aeon Group, the biggest supermarkets, are saying that they are voluntarily refraining from dealing bluefin juveniles under 10 kilograms, sorry. And York Benimaru under Ito-Yokado, which is the second biggest supermarket in Japan, saying that considering the issue seriously, we volunteer in decreasing dealing amount of % caught bluefin tuna under 30 kilograms. Okuba, which is based in Wakayama Prefecture, regional supermarkets are saying that % caught bluefin tuna from Japan Sea or East Sea should be banned from the market. Also, the supermarkets say that bluefin juvenile % fishery should be banned. So what Okuba says is much stricter than what governments are pushing forward. And Greenpeace thinks that this kind of proactive initiative from the supermarket is really essential to solve this situation and move it forward, and also work together with the government. Yes. So Pacific bluefin tuna is considered as the centerpiece of sushi, which is being treated as the icon of the washoku, or like traditional Japanese cuisine. And supermarkets are saying that they have responsibility to inherit washoku to next generation. And that's why it's allow me to repeat that those supermarkets should really seriously consider about how their procurement has been, and to fix that as what we recommended. Thank you very much. Yes, so that's all from our presentation. Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much. So I think we're going to go on with the Q&A. So I would like to pick someone at the working press table. Have any questions? Fujita-san.
My name is Siri Fujita, and I'm at the Kokumin Shimbun. And I'd like to ask a question about this chart here. This is the total number of the whales, the tuna caught since 1951. We can see that the amount is very small. Recently, in it's a different slide. Yes. Right.
So this slide is showing the catches prior to 1950. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. So what's the situation right now?
If we go, what is the situation now?
Yeah, compared with this amount.
Okay. Can we go back to this one here? Mm-hmm. So This is coming up to 1955. So on the previous slide that we just looked at, can you go? Sorry, thank you. No, that one. You can see the catches there were at just under 10,000 metric tons. And if we go to this one, you can see there that they pick up at around about 18 or 19,000 metric tons. And then you can see that it's varied widely through this period of time in terms of the metric tonnage per year. I think the really significant situation is that it is not possible to maintain a spawning stock biomass if you are catching 97 to 98% of them before they reproduce. And so I won't comment at the moment on what necessarily caused this variation. I'm sure there are a number of factors. I think of what is particularly of concern to us now is that due to the extraordinarily high level of the catch of juveniles and the lack of management measures, we see a situation where the population is at just 4% of its historic levels. There is some research that Pew has also seen that suggests that there may only be 1 or 2 age classes left spawning, which means that without clear and appropriate action immediately, we run the risk of seeing this population really reach the point where it can no longer be fished and the point where we may not see it really very much at all in the ocean anymore. The good news out of all of this, which is why we collectively have such clear recommendations, is that with strong management action, if we refer back to the information that we showed about the age at which these fish mature, with strong management action, we could see substantial rebuilding of this population within a reasonable time frame. This does not have to be a story with an unhappy ending. This could be a situation where we see some very, very positive signs within a relatively short space of time. And that is why we collectively are calling on all of the governments involved to implement the recommendations from the ISC, make the necessary actions happen this year to cut catches, particularly catches of juveniles, so that we can see a recovery start to happen.
Is that the biggest reason for the decline of the total number of...
I think clearly the biggest reasons, and I will also pass to Aiko momentarily for her comments, but I think the biggest reasons are that there's clearly just been too much fishing and too much fishing of juveniles. It is that simple, I think.
I think Amanda's answers is really correct, and I have not much to add on it. Thank you.
So questions can be asked in Japanese as well, please.
Give me a minute to put this on.
日本消費経済新聞の神林と申します。2つ質問があるんですが、1つはですね、漁業者の方々は非常にやっぱり資源の枯渇っていうのを心配してるんですよね。それで、例えばこの削減を
すみません、もう一度始めていいですか。アパレルをつけてます。
日本消費経済新聞の神林と申します。で、2つ質問があります。1つは漁業者の方は非常に漁獲量がこのままでは取れなくなるって心配してるんですが、日本が今これをやっても韓国から買い入れをしていては結局日本が取らなくてもダメじゃないかと、そういう自分たちは我慢をしてもっていうようなところが一つと、もう一つはですね、巻き網漁を止めない限りはどうしても全部小型も取って総ざらいで取ってしまうので、巻き網あるいはハエ縄なんかの漁法を制限する必要があるんではないかというふうな意見が生産者の話し合いの時に出てるんですね。でその辺に対してはどういうふうにお考えかということと、国際的にその辺の例えば漁獲方法について制限するような動きがあるのかどうかというのを教えてください。
Thank you. Me to answer to your first question. Yes, it is true. It's not only Japan. The situation has to be solved through global wise, like Pacific Oceans wise. But at least Japan is the biggest fishing nation and also the consuming nation. So it's really important that Japanese politics and also market takes the lead to solve the situation. So, yeah, I should stop here.
Is that
Yeah.
So for the second question, I would like to give answers on behalf of our three organizations. Yes, we are aware of some kind of a conflict that exists. However, that we would like to see is that how we can really come up with the reducing the juvenile fishing mortality following the scientific advice. And all these, the conservation measure only can be realized with the whole in the fishing nations as well as the fishing industries will get the really good cooperation. So this is our comments on that for the second question. But you, thank you. Or do you want to add it? Yes.
I think the one other comment I might add is we all believe that it's important that all of the countries involved participate in taking measures. This cannot be a situation where any of the countries look at another country and say, well, you know, it's their fault or not our fault. The reality is that there was only one scenario of all of those that were identified and studied, only one that showed any sort of chance of recovery, and that scenario requires action from all of the countries concerned. I think it's fair to say, and I would happily hear if anyone feels otherwise, but I think it's fair to say that no country in the world cares about the future of tuna as much as Japan does. And so this is a time, I think, for all countries involved to show leadership, and particularly for a great opportunity with this meeting taking place in Japan, for Japan to show real leadership in changing the course of the future for this species.
Okay, any further questions, Mr.? Please identify yourself.
Andy Klein, WCN-TV.com. Government action is, of course, quite necessary, but I think the average person walking around isn't quite aware of the crisis that's unfolding. So do you have a plan to create more awareness to everyday people? And also, do you feel that it's time for supermarkets and restaurants to ban bluefish tuna, or bluefin tuna?
Thank you. Yes, why? I mean, many consumers in general in Japan have heard about the news that the stock of the Pacific bluefin tuna is declining. But if you go to supermarkets, which like 70% of the house consumed seafood is being bought, if they go there, then they see those fish all the time. So those are the gap. Consumers are in between of those gaps. And that's why I think it is really important. Supermarkets have the really important position to take. Greenpeace urges supermarket to establish sustainable seafood procurement policies and also supply enough information for the consumers on the in the shop so that consumers can choose what to buy. Yes.
Okay, Mr.
My name is Rick Weisbird. I have a small scientific editing and translation service, and I'm a marine scientist by training. I taught biology for 9 years at a national university in Japan. And this was maybe about 10 years ago in conjunction with some of the safe seafood initiatives that were starting in the United States. I used that as a discussion topic and was very discouraged that none of my students would, I asked, would you stop eating your favorite seafood if you knew it was an endangered species and continuing to consume it could result in extinction? And none of my biology students, 0, agreed that they would do that. So I'm just wondering, is there something more that can be done to implement some kind of cultural change? Because my impression of Japanese society today, which is by far the largest consumer, is people don't want to stop eating this delicious food.
Do you want to go first?
Yes. Thank you. As a Japanese who work in international NGO, I think Japanese in general, if they understand that there's not much left, they want to consume. So I think it's we have to think about it's more like communication things. Showing urgency-ness might not be like not be effective in Japan to solve this issue from the consumer side. That's what I feel. Yeah, but nobody in Japan want to eat up all the fish and like left no to next generation. So those are the places that we give more supply more information to the consumers and encourage them to think what they can do to solve the situation.
So,
sorry, excuse me. There was
yeah, we have two more to comment.
Oh, excuse me. So we can continue.
Yes, thank you, Wakao. I think I agree with you that no Japanese want to lose this really delicacy, at least. However, that what the Japanese consumer are not educated well is that if you don't be really careful at this moment, you will lose it forever. It's not what they have never educated, I think. So this is a really good time, and we don't want to use the Pacific bluefin tuna from the Japanese the food restaurant or any household, which means that we can really want to encourage the Japanese consumers to take the actions which really can very supportive to have this stock they recovered and for the next generation.
Thank you. I completely agree with both of these sets of comments. I think the other thing that I would add is when you're in a situation where you're at 4% of unfished levels, it takes more than one approach. So it is obviously important to continue working with consumers, but social change often takes time, and that is the other reason that it is particularly urgent that governments take action this year. We all know that human nature is it takes us all a little while to change or learn new things, and in the meantime, we need to make sure that the correct management measures are in place, informed by science as quickly as possible.
Ida from Kyodo News. I understand that scenario 6 does not include the reduction of adult catches. And can you give me your ground or reason to recommend the reduction of adult catches? That's my first question. And my second question is, can someone comment on the recent measures introduced by Japanese Minister of Fisheries to reduce the juvenile catch by half?
To start first? Yeah.
I would like to provide the answers for the first questions, Mira-san. Yes, that the scenario 6 doesn't include the reducing the catch of the adult fish. However, that also the ISC report showed that as a result, that they could not see the maintaining the adult fish catch as a 2002 to 2004 level, which is actually what the ISC find out was that we saw that as a total fishing mortality, it is increasing from the 2002 to 2004 average level. So that is one of the background we included to have the really practical conservation measures to the adult fish as well.
Yes, obviously we agree. With respect to the issue of the Japanese government's recent announcements, we collectively believe that the commitment to a 50% reduction in juvenile catch is an excellent first step, but it's only one of the things that needs to happen. We would like to see firm catch limits for mature fish also, and we would also like to see, all of us collectively, a rebuilding plan that means that population is increased to at least 20% within a reasonable time frame. We certainly think that this commitment from the Japanese government is an excellent first step, but we need to see more.
Okay, Mr.
Bill Court, Seafood Smart. From an industry standpoint, I believe that 3 of the primary problems have been long-term failure by the Japanese government to effectively manage the bluefin tuna. Secondly, when the fisheries agency has sought to manage the fishery, frequently they've been doing it in a manner which is not upfront, because they've been making the appearance of managing it when, in fact, their data has been based on unrealistic periods. And thirdly, particularly for Sakai Minato, the major purse seine tuna landing area, they have deliberately and consistently fudged the data. So the basis on which much of the assessment is based is inaccurate. Is there anything effective your 3 organizations can do to address these 3 problems? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions regarding the accurate data collection and have scientific information. As we saw, as we had in there some of the recommendations for the market, we really encourage not only the RFMO, but also for the market stakeholders to implement transparent traceability system, which can be really useful for the accurate data collections, as well as for the scientists to do the really good the analysis with the good scientific information. So, which we mean that the traceability system also including that RFMO's catch documentation scheme, which is something that all the fisheries needs to record and submit that how much and when and where they caught the fish and with the observer.
Just to add, the assessments are undertaken by the ISC, which is the independent group of scientists that undertakes stock assessments for this species on behalf of the Western and Central Pacific Fisheries Commission. So the ISC would accept, is the body that will make the decision about the acceptability of the data that they are receiving. Obviously, from our perspective, and I'm sure all of us would agree, we would love to see improvements in any sort of data provision. It's fundamental to ensuring that your stock assessment is accurate. That said, I think that at this stage, I would find it difficult to imagine a scenario that showed the population to be really that much better than being in a very dire state, even if there are problems with the data. It would be difficult to imagine that problems are so great that we would find out that, in fact, the population is better off than we think it is. So to my mind, all of this underlines the fact that there are a relatively small number of countries involved in this fishery, that Japan is an absolutely critical player, and that now is the time for the advice that is available to be taken seriously and implemented to the best of all of these countries' abilities, be it Mexico or the US or Japan or Korea. Because we're at a stage where without effective management measures, we will be looking towards the end of this fishery, and that will have a negative impact for fishing communities, for consumers, and for the ocean, and I don't think anybody wants that.
Okay, next question. Yes, Mr.
I'm wondering about what China's role in this is, because they're often being caught and most often not caught illegally fishing. So do you have any data on China legal fishing or illegal fishing, and what kind of role do they play?
Well, the three of us are looking at each other, and I'm not sure that any of the three of us feel comfortable providing any commentary on that. I am not aware of any hard data that would be something that we could stand behind and make commentary on. I think it comes down to the fact that for a species this valuable and this important, it is a shame that we don't have stronger management systems such that we could answer that question. And here's hoping that changes in the near future.
Is that because of the government, or why? Is that because it's difficult to attain documents from the government, or why is it difficult to attain such records?
All of these, the fisheries that are managed internationally are managed through the regional fisheries management organizations, who are the ones that make the intergovernmental arrangements that all these countries agree to. If there are insufficiencies in that system or inadequacies in that system, they have to be handled through that intergovernmental body. So I think our hope would be that an organization like the WCPFC will take on board the need for all countries involved in the fishery to provide appropriate data and ensure appropriate management action.
Okay, someone who haven't asked a question? Oh, sorry. So in that case, he asked. So after, I will ask you.
I forgot to say I'm very grateful to all of you for doing this work. I think it's extremely important, and thank you for sharing this data with us. Is there a larger set of this information with more detail available? And in particular, I was wondering why you didn't show any catch per unit effort. You showed stock assessments and fishing landings. So is there catch per unit effort available for the North Pacific population?
I think when you go to the ISC website, I think you could find a more deep analysis, or the deep set of the big set of the database you can reach.
Those of us that work in this area are often accused of making things too detailed and going to levels of information that perhaps doesn't help a broader understanding. So we have kept our presentation to what we hope are the key messages. But I believe, as suggested, you could find a fuller set of information on the ISC website. And anyone who is interested should absolutely go and do that.
Okay, Mr. from Kyoto.
Sorry for asking many questions. I think that coming negotiation committee, Korea could be a problem, an obstacle to have an ambitious agreement. Do you have any strategy to Korea to participate and accept the huge amount of reduction? And do you think that the trade measures like CITES listing can help that to persuade Korea to participate?
I think it is encouraging, certainly, that Korea removed the reservation that it held from 2010 to 2013. That is a good sign. It would be certainly our hope that coming into this meeting that all of the countries involved realize that everyone has to participate for the situation to improve. And it is our hope that Korea, along with all of the other countries in the room, will come with that approach to the negotiations and be prepared to come to agreement that is in line with the science and results in adequate action. Obviously, I think if the international bodies involved currently in managing the fishery do not take the necessary actions, then it is our view that the international community may need to sit back and consider where there may be other opportunities to enact measures that will ensure a future for this species. However, the best case scenario would be that the WCPFC and the IATTC, as the two bodies currently charged with the management of this species, take on board the science that has been provided and enact appropriate conservation and management measures. As I said, if this doesn't happen, then a suspension of fishing and other things may need to be considered. But obviously our hope is that that will not become necessary.
Okay, next question. So we have 5 minutes left, if, no, okay.
If you do have to resort to a suspension, I assume that that would be CITES listing, and that would leave Japan free to continue its domestic bluefin fishery for domestic consumption. How would you handle that problem? And incidentally, thank you very much for all your work and effort on this.
I've talked enough. Do you guys want to say something?
Yes, thank you. Yes, listing CITES doesn't restrict anything from Japan caught tuna, Japan consumption, but it still gives a big pressure, big international attention to how Japanese business and Japanese consumers deal with these species. So, and this is what Japanese Fishery Agency of Japan has been concerned really seriously. That's why that's a big base that why Fishery Agency of Japan is trying to moving things forward as much as possible in their situation.
I think if we called for a suspension, and again, we very much hope that the two international bodies involved will take the correct action so that this is not necessary. I can't express that enough. But if in the unfortunate circumstance that does not occur, our call would be for a suspension of all fishing until those measures are in place. The mechanism for those suspensions would obviously have to be different in a different context. I'm not sure that we would immediately consider CITES the only solution. I think the more important thing is that we're saying without measures in order to ensure a future for this population, without measures taken this year, we collectively will be calling for all of the countries involved to suspend all fishing.
Okay, I think we have just time for the last question, but otherwise we're going to close this session. Okay, so thank you very much for attending the press conference. Yes. Okay. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you very much to our 3 guest speakers today.
Thank you.
Thank you.